Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well. After a great weekend full of sports, we are into the final week of October, if you can believe it. Halloween's right around the corner. And we're halfway through the NFL season. We're getting there. Week 7. It's a 17 games this season. We're we're basically right there. And as you know, on Mondays, we'll chalk it up right now. NFL podcast immediately following. We'll do a NHL, baseball. We got the World Series to preview. We got, Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I know they already have their neck in a guillotine. Maybe I'll talk you out of it. Maybe I'll, just slice your head right off. We'll talk about a lot of different things, some players that I've really liked, some teams that really stand out to me that I think, it's only 4 or 5 games in. So I'm not going to make declarations about where these teams are going, but you can admire how teams are playing, structure, things of that nature. And then there's also teams who have none. And I'll point out about that as well as we go along. Let's talk about some NBA. And throughout the week, we're going to do some different things in the podcast this week. Thursday, I'm going to have Harrison Shootenbelt on. We'll talk about the NBA so far this season. May also get into some betting tips. As you know, if you listen to podcasts before, he has his platform, Sports Mike Mula. So we'll talk about some NBA, Ben Simmons. The Raptors they play the Bulls tonight, which should be an interesting game. The Bulls are 3-0 for the first time in almost 20 years. So that'll be at Scotiabank this evening. Also Thursday, I'll be podcasting with Creighton Fillmore Sonapass. He has been on the show once before. It's been a minute, but I asked him if he wanted to come on and talk about some hockey. So we'll do that on Thursday evening as well. So a couple of podcasts coming Thursday. I will not be podcasting with Seamus tomorrow. That'll be Wednesday. There'll be another Chewbacca podcast coming Wednesday. I'll be doing a Breaking Bad one with Shay, and then I'll be following with another sports pod, just a sports pod. We'll talk about Game 1 of the World Series and all the other action throughout the world of sports. Tomorrow will be an off day for To The Point. I have to go into the body shop, getting some more ink added to my body just to ruin my job prospects. So that's why I have to continue to hopefully work for myself one day, because who's going to hire me with this mustache and one arm completely full of tattoos? But I digress. That's a problem for another day. So that's what's on the docket. We may add some more throughout the week. Obviously, we got the World Series this week. We got hockey full bloom. NFL, great Thursday night football. Arizona versus Green Bay. Can't wait for that one. You better believe I'll be watching every snap of that game. And we'll touch on it all this week. So it should be a jam-packed week here on the podcast. But yesterday, it was, the Sunday of week 7. The NFL week 7 will conclude tonight with the New Orleans Saints coming off a bye, heading into Seattle to play Geno Smith and the Seahawks, which I'll touch on later. But if you look at week 7 as a whole, the themes were blowouts. All day, we saw teams destroy other teams. We came into the week saying, that won't really be a close game. Entered the week saying Green Bay is going to smash the Washington football team, which that game was never really close. The Washington football team turned the ball over 5 times against Green Bay at Lambeau. You're not going to win that game. Then you see in the schedule, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Maybe it won't be a blowout, but Baltimore is going to win this game, right? Didn't turn out to be. Kansas City, Tennessee. We'll get to that one. But you looked at the schedule and you might have thought, maybe the Patriots and Jets will be close. 2 rookie quarterbacks, second meeting, Jets coming off a bye. They were pathetic. 54-13. Could you have tried to play worse? The Carolina Panthers put up 3 points against the New York Giants. Can you say Sam Darnold, maybe it's going to be one and done in Carolina? He was replaced by PJ Walker in the second half. And now Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, is reporting that Carolina is also in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So it shows you how much loyalty they have to old Sammy Darnold. Arizona blows out Houston. No big surprise. the Tampa Bay Buccaneers destroy the Chicago Bears. Maybe you think that'd be close. Now, before we get to the games that really meant something yesterday. Now, there's a few teams that I have on the periphery that could, I still don't know if they're great or if they're not. New Orleans tonight being one of them. But through 7 weeks, if I had to pick one team right now to be in the Super Bowl the second week of February, if I had to bet my apartment on that team, it would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady, at 44 years young, is still, you could make the argument, he's the best quarterback in football. You very much could. He got to his 600th career touchdown pass yesterday. He surgically destroyed the Bears helped by his defense. But it's not just about Tom Brady and that potent offense that why I would say these Bucs will, if I had to bet, would be in the Super Bowl. It's because Tom Brady led teams, whether you're with Bill Belichick or if you look at last season, only get better as the season goes along. Last year, after 12 weeks, they were 7-5. By week 13, they didn't lose another game. Now, what would scare me if I was other teams? Through 7 weeks, they're 6-1. They beat a playoff team from last year yesterday by 35 points. They have one loss to the Rams, who have one loss. They are an elite team. Shaq Barrett is going to come back. Devin White is still a baller. Jason Pierre-Paul is still that dude. Now, the back end of their defense, yeah, it's not that great. Jamel Dean, Sherm, D. Delaney. But they'll get reinforcements back. They're going to get their better corners on the field. And they won by 35 yesterday without Gronk, the best tight end in the history of the National Football League. Without Antonio Brown, who, if he didn't have all his antics in Oakland and his bitch behavior in Pittsburgh, he would be regarded as a lock Hall of Famer. And they still crush teams. But it starts with stability. You look around. I really like the Rams. I really like the Rams. Yesterday, I saw some things from the Rams that I would really be concerned with, which I'll get to. But I like them. I like the Arizona Cardinals. But do I trust Kyler Murray? Do I trust Matthew Stafford more than I trust Tom Brady? No. You'd be an idiot if you did. And I love Aaron Donald. And I like the Rams a hell of a lot more. That it's not Jared Goff at quarterback and it's Matthew Stafford. But yet, Matthew Stafford has never won a playoff game. Kyler Murray has never won a playoff game. Patrick Mahomes didn't win the Super Bowl his first year as a starter. Who did he lose to? Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. He's not slowing down. His offensive line with Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet are elite. He doesn't get hit. Khalil Mack, who's been having a phenomenal season for the Chicago Bears, was non-existent yesterday. He might as well not dressed. He had a bye. And through all the headlines yesterday, and there's great stories from the Bengals and the Titans. Those are great Week 7 stories. And they're great feel-good stories to say, well, this team can really compete in the AFC this year. And that's fine. And I'll talk about things about that in the NHL podcast, about teams that I think are good teams. No, it's good stories. But they're not going to win anything. I'm talking big picture today on who could actually take home another Lombardi. And 7 Super Bowls is not all about Tom Brady. But one thing you can pinpoint to is his leadership on every team. He's had great players with him through every one. Mike Evans has played 8 seasons in the NFL. He's made the Pro Bowl every one of those seasons. Gronk is the GOAT tight end. BA has won Super Bowls as an OC. He's not a bad coach. Again, Richard Sherman is a Super Bowl champion on the back end. They just have ballers. And something that you can point to and say, how do you have any proof? I can point to last year. That Tampa Bay defense was great when they had to be. In the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady was average at best. But that defense was elite. And judging off evidence, I can bank on that defense showing up in those big moments again. And again, I love Aaron Donald. I love Jalen Ramsey. You can make the argument that the Los Angeles Rams have the 2 best defensive players in football. Easily. You can make the argument that the Los Angeles Rams have the best wide receiver in football, and Cooper Kupp. He is that good. Believe that. Devontae Adams is elite. Elite. Cooper Kupp is right there on his level. Cooper Kupp was getting good yardage with Jared Goff, who is an average NFL starter fringe quarterback. Matthew Stafford is obviously a much better QB than Jared Goff, and we see what he's doing. Little Cooper Kupp, who couldn't blow by anybody. But you want to talk about route running, this guy can do it. But even with all that, I hated that they traded Kenny Young today, the Broncos, the linebacker. Probably wouldn't know him. I love him. When I watch the games, he jumps off my screen. That's how I like. When you're watching defense, just watch the game and say, who pops? That's how I evaluate things. Kenny Young, number 41, jumps off the screen. Jalen Ramsey, you wouldn't notice that often because I do like what they're doing with their defensive scheme this year, where he gets closer to the line of scrimmage so he can get involved more. But he makes a play yesterday when you really need him to. Jared Goff's under pressure. 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Jalen Ramsey comes up with a pick. It's those type of plays that win games. And we'll see. The Rams beat the Bucs in round 1. I think we'll see that again. The New Orleans Saints beat the Bucs twice last season. When it got to the NFC divisional round, the Bucs stomped on their throat and ended Drew Brees' career. So there's still a lot to be determined. There'll still be headlines week after week, and you better believe I'll talk about them all. But if I had to put money on one team to win this Super Bowl come the second week of February, call me crazy, it's Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which to bet on a 44-year-old in any sport just seems out of this world. And quite frankly, I don't think we'll ever see this again. So kudos to him. But there's, like I said before, there's also stories from yesterday that are feel good, that have the potential to be long lasting. And let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. For my lifetime, the Cincinnati Bengals have just been a run-of-the-mill organization run by Paul Brown, relatively cheap owner. They've had decent play. Andy Dalton made the playoffs 5 times, won 0 games. Had Marvin Lewis as head coach for 13 seasons, never won a playoff game in that time. Now, they've had great runs. Chris Collinsworth, now NBC analyst, Kenny Anderson leading that team to a Super Bowl and getting destroyed. But it was a good organization. But the last number of years, Andy Dalton left. Zach Taylor took over as head coach. It hadn't been good. But, back in the day, just to sound old today, you could win a Super Bowl with an average quarterback if you had a really good defense. You looked at the 2000 Ravens. They did it. They had a run-of-the-mill quarterback. Tom Brady with the Broncos in Peyton Manning with the Broncos in 2015. He was an average quarterback at that time. Tom Brady in his early years was just a young buck still learning the position, but you had guys like Ty Law and Richard Seymour and just game breakers that really made the difference. But now in today's game with such a passing league and defenses having such a hard time where you get flagged for doing just about anything, you need that elite quarterback play. And Cincy has it. Cincy, I thought this guy, this is how you know this guy's made of the right stuff or the different stuff. He went from his senior college season, start of the year being a projected 6th round draft pick. Todd McShay, Mel Kiper Jr., the experts at the mothership, said this guy may go in the 6th round, could go undrafted. We see a lot of teams just don't draft quarterbacks after the 4th, 5th round. They sign him as an undrafted free agent. That was where Joe Burrow was, transferring from OSU to Louisiana State University. And that season, he threw over 50 touchdown passes, only 6 picks, and turned a 6th round projection into the 1st overall pick in the draft. And in that season, he threw 20 touchdown passes to Jamar Chase. Who did Cincinnati draft last year, 5th overall? Oh, that's right, Jamar Chase from the same LSU. Now, I can say honestly, I didn't love the pick because what happened the year before? Oh, Joe Burrow tore his ACL, MCL, and LCL, meaning his knee went to shit. And Cincinnati didn't have the requisite people to protect their asset, being their star quarterback, their 1st overall pick. Now they went out and they've done some good things. But I thought Penei Sewell out of Oregon was the right pick. They bypassed my line of thinking and took the guy that Joe Burrow just has such fantastic chemistry with. And to this point, they proved me wrong because Jamar Chase, through his first 7 games as a NFL wide receiver, has 758 yards receiving. That is the most through the first 7 games of a wide receiver's career in NFL history. Who did he pass? Who is second on that list now? Just a guy named Randy Moss. Pretty good receiver. I don't know. Hall of Famer. First ballot. Yeah. The connection these two have, it's really tough to put into words. They had reps in college and they brought it to the NFL. We don't see it with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith in Philly. They didn't have that same connection. Jalen Hurts transferred to OSU before Devontae Smith really emerged as the Heisman Trophy winner that we saw last season. And it hasn't exactly transferred in the NFL. But these two are just electric together. Tyler Boyd used to be the best receiver on Cincinnati. Now he's the 3rd or 4th best receiver because the first read is Jamar Chase. Second read is CJ Uzomah, who is emerging as a great tight end. 2 touchdown receptions yesterday for the Bengals. And Jamar Chase yesterday had 200 yards receiving. He had one of the top corners on him the whole day, and Marlon Humphrey. And I heard a lot of experts talk for the game about, Anthony Averett. They got Boyd over there, put a tight end on him. They need to target him, make his day, a living hell. They didn't have to because Jamar Chase chewed Marlon Humphrey alive. Jamar Chase threw a little under route to Jamar Chase just at the first down sticks. Humphrey breaks tackle, then breaks Tavon Young's tackle in the middle of the field. He breaks it off for an 82-yard touchdown. That's just Jamar Chase. He's electric. And when you have a quarterback that just plays at that level, the sky's the limit for a team. And the Cincinnati Bengals destroyed the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. And, Cincinnati can be great on offense. But something they've also done is they went and got great defensive players. Offseason, they signed Trey Hendrickson from the New Orleans Saints. They got Sam Hubbard, who had 2.5 sacks yesterday. He has 6.5 on the season. The Bengals sacked Lamar Jackson 5 times. He did not have time. Patrick McCarry left the game, the right guard, and that offensive line just fell apart. Lamar had to run for his life. And for Cincinnati to go beat Baltimore on the road in Maryland, that was a statement victory. That was a win where you can say, okay, Cincinnati is on the map. They have not lost to an AFC team this season. It's impressive stuff. And now we look ahead. For Baltimore, they go to a bye week. Tough pill to swallow. Because I look at this team and I still really I think Lamar Jackson is still obviously a great quarterback. That hasn't changed following one loss. But I have a few things about Baltimore. Lamar, and I don't blame him, can really only trust Mark Andrews at this point. The tight end Mark Andrews, one of the best in the NFL, just a couple receiving yards behind Travis Kelce for most receiving yards by a tight end. He's going to make the catch. He's going to get open, and he's a great route runner. And he's so reliable. End zone, wherever you need him to, third down, they should just double Mark Andrews because the ball is going his way. But you look around. Hopefully Rashad Bateman, he's still a rookie. He's still learning. Only 2 games under his belt. He can start developing some rapport with Lamar Jackson. Because Hollywood Brown is too iffy for me. There's games where Hollywood Brown looks like he could be a number 1 receiver for a team. And then there's games where he looks like John Ross III, who was a Cincinnati wide receiver drafted in the first round, who could run a 4.2 40, but he couldn't catch to save his life. And Hollywood drops too many balls, point blank. Lamar puts it on the money for him. It's right in the hands, and he just drops them. And for Baltimore, again, the running back, they've been doing it by committee. I would like to have somebody that I would trust a little bit more than Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell or Latavius Murray, for that matter. Because otherwise, Lamar Jackson is going to be running the ball 10-plus times a game, and I don't want that. He's going to take a lot of licks, and come the end of the season, he's going to be battered and bruised, and that team's just not going to be in as good a position because their quarterback is not healthy. We seen Joe Burrow scramble a few weeks ago against Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers told him, "What the hell are you doing? You are too damn good to be doing that. This team needs you long-term. Stop it." Lamar, I love him using his legs. That's a weapon. Obviously use it. But when you have to use it every other play, it becomes a hindrance because you're going to be taking licks from the opposing team, and it also shortens your career. But so Baltimore, I would look at improving the running back position. Maybe Saquon Barkley, but again, he's another injury-plagued running back. So do you really want to get your hands on him? That's something in the receiver position. Their defense has its warts, but Wink Martindale, we saw them week 1 against Vegas. The people were saying Wink Martindale doesn't know how to run this defense. Sky's falling. Well, he turned it around. They won 5 in a row. You can lose a game in this league. It's the best damn league in the world. I'm not jumping off the Baltimore I'm not on any bandwagons, but I'm not jumping off the Baltimore hype just because they lose 1 game to a very game division opponent in Cincinnati. But I do believe they have holes on this team. And the AFC is so interesting because you don't know who's the best team. Buffalo is very good, but they can be had. Kansas City is falling off a cliff. Who the hell knows where that team's going? Cincinnati, people didn't have them on the radar. Yeah, Baltimore, Cleveland's not as good as people thought they'd be. Las Vegas continues to improve. I really like their play. I think Derek Carr is playing at a very high level. But the AFC is wide open with who's the best team. And we still have a lot of runway to prove it here. But for Cincinnati, they have another division opponent next week in the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati goes to the Jets. They play Cleveland in 2 weeks. So they have the Jets, who I believe are the worst team in football. They're not competitive. You could look at Detroit, who doesn't have a win, but Detroit's at least competitive. Miami and the Jets are worse than Detroit, in my opinion. Maybe you could put the Texans in there, who are terrible as well. But I think the Jets are the worst team in football, and it's not even that close. Just with their ineptness and how they performed yesterday. But the AFC is so fluid, and it just got proven again because on Monday night, a week ago today, Tennessee played on Monday Night Football at home against the Buffalo Bills, and they were heavy underdogs, but they found a way to win the game, stuffing Josh Allen on a quarterback sneak with 23 seconds to play. Ended the game. So they get a short week, and they're still at home, and they get Kansas City. And yesterday, if Monday night was not a statement for Tennessee, yesterday was, because it was a drubbing like I've never seen. Patrick Mahomes looked terrible yesterday. The Kansas City Chiefs looked terrible. And the Tennessee Titans were so impressive to me for a number of reasons. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is not very good, but something Steve Spagnuolo did know how to do was say, you know what? Tennessee has the best running back in football. We're going to put 7 guys in the box, and we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us. We saw the following week that he took one for 76 yards to the house against the Bills. That wasn't going to happen yesterday. His longest run of the day was 15 yards. They contained him. He had 86 rushing yards. If you think, okay, you're playing Tennessee, Derrick Henry has 86 rushing yards. You know what? We won the game, hands down. No, he didn't even come close to winning the game. You lost by 24. And Tennessee impressed me yesterday because I believe Ryan Tannehill played his best game as a pro yesterday. Now, you could look back and say, well, the Chiefs defense isn't any good. Well, you're still going up against Patrick Mahomes. So you got to think, well, okay, maybe their defense is very good, but I have to win a shootout. Well, the defense was great for Tennessee, but so was Tannehill. And him and A.J. Brown have one of the most elite connections in the NFL. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, Tannehill goes 21 for 27, 270. He did throw an interception, but he was great yesterday. He ran the ball twice for 6 yards and a score. But you look at Tannehill, A.J. Brown had 8 catches for $133 and 1 touchdown. They just couldn't cover him. Julio Jones is just another guy on this roster. But this team has so much going for it. You have Pruitt, Ferkser at tight end. You have Julio, A.J. Brown, Henry. And what do they go into their bag of tricks? They get into the red zone. Derrick Henry throws a touchdown pass to McCole Pruitt. They just have creative offensive plays. I love their head coach because he's always into the game. He's fired up. And Tannehill gets out of the shadow of Adam Gase, and then he heard, well, Arthur Smith built Ryan Tannehill. I think Arthur Smith has good offensive concepts. I don't disagree. You look at the way Kyle Pitts is performing in Atlanta, which I'll get to. But Ryan Tannehill is a very good quarterback. And he embraces what I think Baker Mayfield has failed to on a consistent basis. Ryan Tannehill plays his best football when you establish the run, and then you go play action, bootlegs, screen game, that type of thing. Ryan Tannehill is not worried about stats. He's not worried about, well, I wonder if Pro Football Focus will rank me as the best quarterback this week, or how many ads can I do? He doesn't give a crap. He cares about winning the football game. And you look at Tennessee, their defense is not even close as good as Cleveland. Their offense, yes, I love A.J. Brown, but Cleveland has this very similar offense. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are elite running backs. And I just think Tannehill's embraced the offense. He's embraced his role as a quarterback and this is a positive thing, he's a game manager. But yesterday he was more than a game. He can be more than a game manager, but more often than not, that's his role on a football team. Ryan, make the plays. Just don't lose us the game tonight. Yesterday he was great. And on the opposite side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes looks terrible. Three points is what he put up yesterday against Tennessee, who had the second worst defense last season in the NFL. It's improved. It's still not great. Bud Dupree's improved that pass rush. Jeffrey Simmons is a baller. They got some good defensive players, but it's not exactly murderer's row back there. But I look at him and I kind of feel like he's pressing in basketball. I'll correlate him to Russell Westbrook in the Oklahoma City Thunder days, where Russ felt like he had to do everything himself when he had Kevin Durant standing in the corner. That's a big reason why Oklahoma City never won an NBA title, because Russell Westbrook felt like he had to do everything himself. Where I don't know if this is Andy Reid and the play calling, but Mahomes he's holding the ball too long. Number one, he led his team in rushing yesterday. That's a problem. He's not throwing the ball away. So that means he's taking hits. We saw the knee that he took late in the fourth quarter. That he could very well be concussed. He got a concussion last year against the Cleveland Browns. And he's had an interception in 6 straight games. Career high. And he looks like he's pressing. Like he has to go for a big play all the time. Like he's so worried about that defense that he's saying, I have to put up points every drive. If I have to throw a pass to Tyreek Hill in triple coverage, well, gosh darn it, I'm going to do it because you know what? I don't trust this team to win. And I've never seen an Andy Reid team in Kansas City have this type of attitude, but that's the vibe I'm getting. And you look at their defense, it doesn't look good. You know, the Honey Badger is a guy who plays with emotion. You just see him, he looks frustrated all the time, looks pissed off, yelling at teammates. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to turn around this year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to finish 5-11 or 5-12 this year with 17 games, but I'm going to look ahead. And their defense is not going to improve overnight. Mahomes can improve, and I believe he will because he's Patrick bleeping Mahomes. I can't expect this. So next week they have the Giants on Monday Night Football at home. I got to think you got to beat the Giants. So you go to 4-4. Okay, that's fine. Then they have Green Bay. It's not an easy game. It is at home, but Green Bay will have they play this Thursday, so they'll be off for 10 days, and Kansas City will be on a short week. That's no guaranteed victory. Then they play the Raiders in Las Vegas on a Sunday night. Vegas is legit. Yes, they played the Eagles yesterday, who are not impressive whatsoever. I think you're looking at an Eagles team that's again going to be saying, what are we doing at quarterback? They traded Carson Wentz last offseason. They have Jalen Hurts. I don't think he plays every game the rest of this year. I think by the end of the year, we will see some Gardner Minshew Jr. III in at quarterback. Doesn't mean he's a long-term answer. And, you know, you look at this draft, it's not exactly quarterback heavy. I do believe Kenny Pickett from Pitt is starting to rise. Matt Corral potentially could be a pick, but what does Philly do with their quarterback position? I mean, the running game stinks. With Miles Sanders was injured early yesterday, but the Raiders are a good football team. They won yesterday easily without Darren Waller, and Derek Carr had 3 incompletions yesterday. He went 31-34, just surgical out of his hand. You look around, he's got weapons. He's got Zay Jones for a big play every game. Big play Zay. You might as well call him that because he'll get a 40-yard chunk play. They didn't have Josh Jacobs for most of the game. Kenyon Drake is a very good backup running back. He's a great receiving running back. He can also run between the trenches. Foster Moreau is a backup tight end that can play for these Raiders. He made a great reception in the end zone for a touchdown yesterday on National Tight Ends Day. The guy can play. And you look at their defense, Max Crosby's playing at an elite level. KJ Wright was a great signing. Corey Littleton in the middle. Denzel Perriman. This defense is very good. The Chargers in that division, they had a bye week this week. They're coming off a tough loss, but Justin Herbert, still a very good quarterback. Brandon Staley is still there. They got a good defense. The Broncos are a wash, but they don't exactly have an easy schedule. They have a tough division where they still have to play the Chargers again. They play the Raiders twice. And the Broncos, you expect they win those games, but you do have to go to Mile High, and who knows what happens there as it gets later into the season. So my big thing for Patrick Mahomes is heading into this, you don't play till Monday, so you have an extra day. I would just play some basic football. Don't try to go for the big play all the time. Early on in this Giants game, I don't care if it's Darrell Williams. I don't care if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back from injury. Establish the run. Give Darrell Williams some carries. You have to try to establish some sort of running game early. And it's not just Mahomes throwing the ball 45 times a game, because we've seen it this year. It's not working because their O-line is not holding up either. That's another issue for this team. It's just a mess in Kansas City. And kudos to Tennessee. They're 5-2 right there with Cincinnati, with Baltimore. We'll see what Buffalo can do this week against Miami coming off a bye to be 5-2. But Tennessee to be 5-2, playing Buffalo and then Kansas City back-to-back to get both wins is really impressive. And, for Tennessee, they got the Colts this week. It'll be their second and final matchup of the season. And the Colts get a big win last night in the Bay Area in a rainy showdown where teams were, just fumbling the ball left and right. Brandon Ayuk had a tough night. Deebo Samuel with a fumble. Carson Wentz with one of the most ugly interceptions you'll ever see. But with a win this week, this is a massive game for both teams for different reasons. For Tennessee, I believe they win this game, they lock up the division. They will be 6-2. The Colts will be 3-5. I think that's 3-5. That's a very tough position for the Colts to make the playoffs. They would have to play some fantastic football down the stretch to make the playoffs. And you'd be 5-3 and 4-4 for the Colts. And I give them credit. They have a great running game. Carson Wentz made big plays last night. He still does Carson type things where you look at him and say, what the hell is that? But they'll have to play some really good football. And for Tennessee, they could be playing for a division title, and, the Colts would be fighting for a wild card the remainder of the season. But Tennessee's legit. They've always been a playoff contender. They seem to always be in the mix. They made the AFC championship game 2 years ago. They lost in the divisional round to Baltimore last year. So we'll see where this team goes, but I believe this Colts game is a big opportunity for this team to go out there, beat the Colts for a second time already this season. That Jets loss is ugly for sure, but it could have been the wake-up call they needed to say, we need to pull up our bootstraps here and start kicking some ass because this is getting embarrassing. And to their credit, they did. I'm going to get to that Lions-Rams game and just, I give a lot of credit to Dan Campbell, which I'll get to. But yesterday was a coming out party, for Jamar Chase, which I mentioned off the top. But in that same rookie class who went fourth, a pick above him, Kyle Pitts is starting to emerge for the Atlanta Falcons. And Kyle Pitts was the best player in the draft. I said that before watching him at Florida. This guy could not be covered. He just was unstoppable. And, let's look at Kyle Pitts, who's only 20, just turned 21. What has he done so far this year? Well, You look at him slow start, and you're like, well, is he going to be that good? Yeah, he's going to be that good because it's Kyle damn Pitts. And looking for the stats and info here, but I guess they don't want to give it to me. But here we go. Career stats. He's got 31 receptions this season, 471 yards, 1 touchdown. So, but you look versus Philly, week 1, 4 catches, 31 yards. At Tampa Bay, 5 for 73. Giants, 2 for 35. Washington football team, 4 for 50. But then it's the last 2 weeks. Against the Jets, 9 for 119 to score. Yesterday against Miami, 7 receptions for 163. And what the biggest catch of the game was a 45-yard reception is that Matt Ryan's got the ball after Tua scores with a little over 2 minutes remaining to Mac Hollins in the back of the end zone. He throws a strike to Kyle Pitts on the first play. He goes up for 45 yards, basically put the team in field goal position with that one play. But teams are still putting man coverage against Kyle Pitts, and he's making them pay for it. But Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase is in a better position because he's on a better team. But Atlanta's one of those teams where I look and say, are you any good? Because they beat Miami and they've beaten the Jets the last 2 weeks. That's not exactly murderer's row. But they are 3-3. They are in that playoff window. And you look at the NFC, Packers, likely a divisional winner. So you like them to win the division. Rams, potentially divisional winner. Arizona, so they'll be a wild card team. Bucks, obviously. But there's still a void. And I say, well, maybe Atlanta could squeak into a playoff spot. They don't have a great running game. Matt Ryan's still a good quarterback. Their defense has improved. But this year's draft class is starting to wake up. Trevor Lawrence had a bye this week. He's played really good football over the last 3 weeks, only intercepted the ball once. Tough day for Zach Wilson yesterday. Gets hurt. He's out with a PCL strain for 2 to 4 weeks, but he hasn't exactly been terrible. Then you look at Justin Fields had a really rough day yesterday, but I do think I like Justin Fields. I think he's got better football in him. But you look at the receivers, they're starting to improve week over week. And like Justin Jefferson, like CeeDee Lamb in their rookie seasons, receivers can have a big impact. They can get 1,000 receiving yards. And for Atlanta, you got Calvin Ridley. You departed with Julio Jones. Kyle Pitts is that guy. Matt Ryan had Tony Gonzalez for most of his career. He's just a great, stable guy to throw the ball to in the middle of the field. Well, Kyle Pitts is more athletic because he can run down the field. Tony Gonzalez was not running yards past 20 yards. Kyle Pitts can flat out do it. And if I look at that mix of teams where I'm like, are they really that good? The Falcons are definitely one of those teams. Another team for me in that mix is the New England Patriots. And the reason I'm hinting towards them being, I said they'd be a playoff team before the start of the season, and they beat the Jets yesterday. So take that with a grain of salt. But I like Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones is going to be a solid NFL quarterback because he can do it. And they just need to let him open up the Pandora's box a little bit and play quarterback. Look, yesterday he went 24 for 36, 307, 2 scores. That's great stuff. And they also are starting, Damian Harris had 100 yards yesterday on 14 carries. They got J.J. Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson didn't even play yesterday. But you look, he's got Jacoby Myers involved. Kendrick Bourne threw a touchdown pass, wide receiver, to Nelson Aguilar in a play yesterday. So you're starting to see that creative offense, trick plays. Brandon Bolden, the third string running back, had 6 carries for 79 yards, 6 receptions for 79 yards yesterday and a score. But I'm undecided on the Patriots, but I like them. I think they're a good. I like Mac Jones and Josh McDaniels. Don't put the handcuffs on this kid. Let him throw the ball down the field. You got Nelson Aguilar who can fly. Let him take some deep balls. Kendrick Bourne can run those good routes too. And you got 2 great tight ends. Don't make them run little slant routes and stop after 5 yards. Maybe you do that for Hunter Henry because he's a good end zone threat. Jonnu Smith is athletic. He can run down the field. Let him please, because this offense has nothing but potential. And for the Patriots, looking at, they got the Chargers this week in Los Angeles. That's not an easy game. Chargers coming off a bye. They'll want to prove something. Then the Patriots, I believe, have their bye. So then they head to Carolina. Very much a winnable game. Carolina's a disaster. They've lost 4 in a row since starting 3-0. Cleveland, winnable game at home. Absolutely. Going to Atlanta. Those are my 2 teams. Are these teams really good teams? Are they really a playoff contenders? Looking throughout the league, Pittsburgh, I have way more faith in New England than I do in Pittsburgh. San Francisco last night. Obviously terrible conditions, and neither team played well. It's really tough to play well. The conditions really ruined the football game. But Jimmy G is just a bootleg quarterback. When the run gets stopped, he can't really do much. He can't move. Deebo Samuel, he's lucky he's got 2 receivers that are great after the catch. One being Deebo, the other Brandon Ayuk, who was a non-factor last night, but no George Kittle. Trey Lance is obviously the future, and being 2-4 in that division, I worry about the 49ers. They got the Bears next week and Chicago. They could win that game, but after that, it gets dicey for me. Seattle's are they a playoff team? To me, without Russell Wilson, they're not. They're obviously 2-4. Tonight's win would be massive. The Saints, again, they still not the Minnesota Vikings. So there are still some fringe teams that need to prove what they are. But, I think the Patriots, Falcons, those are 2 of those teams. And I look at San Francisco, these teams that I had more expectations for that have just underperformed so far this season, just to put it lightly. I mentioned the Rams off the top, and I still think the Rams are a very good football team, but I have some worries after yesterday's game. Now, the Rams beat the Detroit Lions, but it's the way that they had to beat them that worries me. And just to put some context in this game, going in yesterday, it was the Revenge Bowl game where you had Jared Goff, formerly of the Los Angeles Rams, first overall pick, and it never really worked out. They made it to a Super Bowl, but they lost to Tom Brady. Sean McVay never really loved Jared Goff as a quarterback. He never trusted him. And Sean McVay, being the void genius, said, Matthew Stafford can run my offense a hell of a lot better than Jared Goff. Bootlegs, play action. He's got a big arm. Jared Goff is less of that. He's more check down Charlie, screen game. And he just didn't have the trust in Jared Goff. So in the offseason, Jared Goff was not informed that he was going to be traded to the Detroit Lions. And it was last second. It was on the phone. I guess the phone call didn't go well because McVay ended the call. And McVay was with Matthew Stafford in, I believe, Cabo when the trade was finalized, Jared Goff being a Detroit Lion. So you have Matthew Stafford against the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff against the Rams. And you also had Dan Campbell, who called out Jared Goff the week before after this embarrassing loss to Cincinnati, where he said, we expect more from Jared. We need more from our quarterback. This is we want to win here, and we need him to step up. Well, I don't know if Jared Goff, stepped up yesterday, but I think Dan Campbell and that coaching staff for the Detroit Lions did everything they could to beat a far superior team. And this is what worries me for the Rams. So Rams score an opening drive touchdown on a screen pass to DeAndre Swift. Okay, that happens. He goes through the defense. You'd like to get a tackle there, but Swift's a good running back out of Georgia. Shit happens. That's going to happen. But then after they score the touchdown, they're kicking it back, but they fake it. They do an onside kick recovered by Detroit. First of all, you need to be ready. Special teams, it can happen at any moment. We saw the Eagles try it to start the second half against Vegas. Vegas was all over it. Their new head coach happens to, Rick Scarvizia happens to be a special teams coordinator before John Gruden got fired. So that might help. But at the same time, McVay, sideline, you're not ready in special teams because they weren't. So successful onside kick Then the Lions go 3-0. But the punter gets the ball, fakes the punt, and throws a first down strike, 17-yard gain to keep the drive going. That leads to a field goal. So the Rams are down 10-0 before the Rams touch the football. But yet this did not stop. Because in the first half, the Rams are going to punt. It goes direct snap to a backup linebacker. He takes it to the edge and gains 20+ yards. So 3 special teams plays were converted by the Detroit Lions. And with all they did, they pulled out all the stops. It came down to the end. Detroit was down by 6 late. Jared Goff was intercepted by Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey just made a better play, pressure in his face. But for the Rams, people have seen that you have a weakness. Special teams, you are not prepared for this. And hopefully you'll watch tape and improve because you have to. But at the same time, this shouldn't have happened. You should know Dan Campbell is going to do everything he can to win this game. You don't think he wanted to win this game for Jared Goff? I truly think he loves Jared Goff. Jared Goff may not start every game this season, but he's his quarterback right now. And he took this job knowing Jared Goff was going to be the quarterback. He's playing the team that really gave up on him. That, maybe Jared Goff and his brain things never gave him the true opportunity because Sean McVay never embraced him, never called plays that fit him perfectly. And now he's got Stafford, who he loves with his offense, and we see all the success they're having. And I'm sure that's tough to deal with. So he might think in the back of his brain, I want to beat McVay, I want to beat Stafford, and I want to win this game not only for Jared Goff, but for me. I'm in my first year as a head coach. I haven't won a game yet. This is embarrassing. We're 0-6, now 0-7. But for the Rams, you need to be ready for these plays. What if it's not Detroit, who would only have a field goal after a converted onside kick and then the punter throws for a first down? What if it's a team that has a legitimate offense that can go put up points? What if that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? What if that's the Green Bay Packers? Then you're in trouble. If it's Arizona, who've already beaten you this year, and those really good teams have to watch that tape and say, okay, the next time we get the Rams, we can hurt them this way. Yeah, maybe Mike Evans won't beat Jalen Ramsey every time down the field, or Chris Godwin. But you know what? We can make up ground on special teams. And that would concern me if I was the Rams, and that worries me for the Rams long term, because yes, it's only one game, and yes, you survived it, but it shouldn't have been that close. You shouldn't have let the Lions almost defeat you. And we talk about blowouts, and Miami's been involved in close games the last 2 weeks. They've lost on last-second field goals twice. The Jets had a bye week following a loss to Atlanta. They're the 2 worst teams in football. Detroit's better than them. The Jags are better than them. The Houston Texans are better than them. The Miami Dolphins are easily the most disappointing team in football. 1-6. It's abysmal right now in Miami. Stephen Ross is an older owner. He's like Jerry Jones, and he's talking about his football mortality. And I believe they've been searching for a quarterback in Miami since Dan Marino, 20+ years. And I think they think Deshaun Watson is that guy. And Tua isn't always the problem, but I don't believe he's the answer long-term for any of these teams. He's fragile. He doesn't have a lot of girth to him. He doesn't have a big arm, and they're 1-6. I mean, your record is what it is. You lost to Jacksonville. You lost to Atlanta. You lost to some really porous teams here. And you went from a 10-6 season last year. You're now 1-6, and you play the Bills this week. Yikes. In Buffalo. The Jets, they didn't play with any heart yesterday. They lost 54-13 to the Patriots, a divisional rival. That's just not acceptable. They don't protect their quarterback. Zach Wilson gets hurt during the game. Now you have Mike White at quarterback. No, not Mike White, the creator of School of Rock. Some other guy named Mike White. You can 7 weeks, you can say a few things. You know who the really good teams are, and you know who the really pathetic teams are. The middle ground of like, is this a playoff team? Is this team really that good? You're still trying to figure that out. But what you can say definitively is who's really bad. Houston Texans are really bad. The Miami Dolphins are really bad. New York Jets are really bad. Jacksonville, they're not a great football team, but they're not in that category for me. Because they got a better quarterback. They got better players. And I think they got a lot more heart than either the Jets or the Dolphins do. I look at Xavier Howard for Miami. He's one of the best cover corners of the last number of years. I think the guy just flats out quits the past couple of weeks. You need to want to win. And I think for Brian Flores, we see how frustrated he is after games. I think there's guys in that locker room that just flat out don't really care if they win or lose. And that's the worst possible thing you can have in there, because that's a cancer that just spreads throughout the locker room like venom. And before you know it, your team is lost and you're going to be on the freeway with a bag looking for an Uber. So tonight, Saints, Seahawks, the Saints bye week, and then they don't play till they go the full week and don't play till Monday. So Seattle played last Sunday night. Geno Smith will make his second start as a Seahawk here with Russell Wilson on the mend. So we'll see if he can improve. Didn't play exactly fantastic against the Steelers. Looking at the injury report, I know Chris Carson did not play last week. Alex Collins was the starting running back. Going to look that up now. He's a big part if they can get a running game going tonight against New Orleans. It doesn't look like Carson will be available tonight. No timetable for return. So it might be Alex Collins again. I'll look up Rashad Penny, who hasn't played yet this year. He's another guy that they've always had in their backfield. He's expected back from injured reserve. So Rashad Penny may go tonight for the Seattle Seahawks at running back. That's a big part if they can win tonight. Establish the run early. Geno Smith play action. Make the plays that you have to. And you got two great receivers. You got Tyler Lockett. You got DK Metcalf. Use them. And, I think you just play game manager type football for Seattle. On the course of Arizona, number one, I want to see if they load the box early. But also if Seattle's going to throw the ball, you got Cam Jordan, you got Malcolm Brown in the middle of that defense. Can you get to Geno Smith? Can you get to him? Cam Jordan's an elite player. You're fresh. I want to see how the Saints come out defensively. Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Williams on the back end. Can you lock up DK Metcalf? Can you lock up Tyler Lockett? Can you limit how effective these guys are tonight? Those are two great matchups that are just elite matchups that I'll be watching intently. And then for this offense, Jameis Winston, Traquan Smith might be back, but continue to use Alvin Kamara. You find Traquan Smith. Deontay Harris, who is a special teams player, is emerging as a receiver. Take your deep shots when you have them because you got that big arm, but continue to play smart football. Don't throw into triple coverage. Don't be a turnover machine. And this Saints team could push for a playoff spot. Atlanta in their division's decent. Carolina's fallen off a cliff. And obviously you got Tampa Bay, who's the cream of the crop. But the Saints, even without Drew Brees, could be a playoff team in their first season, sans Brees, if you see Jameis Winston play good complementary football and not try to be a hero all the time. So that's the Monday Night Football game tonight. Arizona, Green Bay, Thursday later in the week, which I can't wait. We'll tune that one up as we go along here this week. But fun show to everybody. Great day of NFL. It's a lot of good storylines. Hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. If you have any comments, any opinions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. You can find that on YouTube, or you could leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Those mean a lot as well, so I'd appreciate that. But I'll be back in a little bit to talk about the rest of the world of sports. No Breaking Bad podcast tomorrow. That'll be Wednesday, as I mentioned off the top. But a big week coming in here on To The Point. World Series starting soon. But I'll be back real shortly to talk to all of you. So until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.